Hello everyone, welcome to Can't Afford to Record, the YouTube channel where we figure out the art of audio production together. Today, I'm catching up with Steve Rawls and Will Turpin from Reel to Reel Studios. Reel to Reel was started by Bill Turpin back in 1976, and it's actually the longest continually operating recording studio in the metro Atlanta area. I had the great pleasure in speaking to Steve Rawls, co-owner of Reel to Reel, and actually Bill Turpin's son, Will, who is now also co-owner of the studio, and of course, you all know Will's band, Collective Soul. We cover a lot in this conversation, from favorable mix styles to demo songs that go on to becoming multi-selling platinum hits, all the way to what Reel to Reel does to make sure that every single person that steps foot in the studio has the best experience. Now, don't forget, this video version of this podcast has the Zoom conference call quality to it, so if that's not your style, no problem. You can go and listen to the much nicer audio, which you will find wherever you listen to your podcasts, and you'll see all the other podcasts I've done previously. Big thank you to Steve and Will for taking the time to speak to me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Well, we're here with Mr. Steve Rawls and Will Turpin at Reel to Reel Studios. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Doing good, man.
Awesome stuff. I'm pleased to say I've been to Reel, and I've been able to have a walk around, and man, it is an absolute bona fide recording studio. It's has so many amazing things in it, some stuff that I hope we can get into as well. But I was on your website this morning and just going through, just doing a bit more research. I checked out your client list, which is just, immensely impressive. A couple of names that obviously stick out to me: Collective Soul, of course, Will, Kansas, Toby Keith, and one of my favorite bands, actually, Blackberry Smoke. And they're just a selection of them that have been there. I mean, you guys have worked with so many different companies. You do work for people that also might not be there in person. But I was very pleased to see on my copy of Blackberry Smoke, this was obviously mastered at Reel to Reel by you, Steve.
Leave a scar.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, just, a big fan of what you guys do, and hope we can sort of get into a little bit about the history and just geek out about audio stuff. But the first question I ask everyone is, and I will go one at a time here, but so we'll start with you, Steve. Do you remember a time when you couldn't afford to record?
Yes, very much so.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, I was very young, probably 17 years old. I was in a band, a prog rock band here in Atlanta. We were pretty sure we were going to be the next Beatles. We were wrong. But at 18, we were driving through Stockbridge and we saw a sign that said "Studio coming soon." So we stopped and said, "Hey, we'll help you build this place in exchange for recording time." There was a guy there with a big handlebar mustache. That was Will's dad, and that began my friendship with Bill Turpin. And Bill allowed us to record there in exchange for our helping him build it. So that made recording affordable. So I was fortunate, because of Will's dad, that I didn't have to, as an adult, I didn't really endure not being able to afford recording. So that was was a very nice thing.
And then a nice energy exchange as well with that.
And in the 90s, I became Bill's business partner. And then Bill passed away, and Will took Bill's interest, which made me extremely happy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Will, I guess really for you, you've always been able to afford to record, really, because you kind of grew up with this recording studio. So
not quite the same question for me.
His dad charged him extra. So.
Yeah, when I was really young, it was definitely we didn't record a whole lot. We would get together as bands, but we'd have to get in here when nobody was around. No paying customers were around.
Right. Okay. So Reel to Reel has been open since 1976, I believe.
We're the oldest continually operating studio in the state of Georgia.
Wow. That's amazing. So, I've been there. It's a very impressive space. Has it always been like that? Did you guys start a little smaller? Did you knock walls through? Did you expand? How did it work?
So you saw the current studio, right?
Yeah.
You were here after 2003. In
Yes.
76, the original studio was built in a home. It was in the basement of a home that was built in, I believe, 1939, when my grandfather was elected superintendent of that county, of Henry County. So that's when that house was built. And then my dad got out of the Army with a baby boy and a wife. And my grandfather still had that home, was renting it out. And my dad moved into that home upstairs, started a music store. I was born in 71. So by the time I was 5 years old, we had bought another house a block away. And Dad was, at 4 years old, I have no memory of this, but Dad was building a studio in 1975 and trying to get it open.
Wow. I met Will when Will was 4 years old when I met him. So
okay, yeah. So you know the backstory in Will for sure.
But we started, it started in that little house, and the entire studio, which Will said was the downstairs. I mean, the entire house upstairs and downstairs was maybe 1,500 square feet, maybe. I mean, the downstairs studio had like 7-foot ceilings. Everything was really, really small. So we built this place in 2000. So what you saw is completely different than where we started. So
okay. And Steve, you obviously exchanged your time as this up and coming band, to help build the studio and then get some recording time there. But what also happened after that? Did you just sort of just keep going back and bugging Bill until he eventually took you on, or how did it work?
You got a real job.
Well, yes. I got married at 18. My daughter was born when we were 20. So about 21, I had to get a real job.
Yeah.
And I got in the corporate world and was incredibly fortunate there and able to kind of call it quits from the corporate world at 35 years old. I called my friend Bill Turpin and said, Bill, I'm getting out of the corporate world. I want to get back into music full time. What do you recommend? And Bill's response was, I don't know, Steve, everything's going computerized now. Well, that's what I just finished 14 years doing, was computers. So I said, oh, great. That's right up my alley. Perfect. So Bill had just gotten into video production at Reel to Reel, and they needed an audio for video suite. So I was the second person or third person in Atlanta to buy Pro Tools. And I did nothing but the audio for Reel to Reel's video as a separate company. And then about 7 years later, we merged my company and Reel to Reel's company and built this studio.
I'm with you. I just saw, I'm sure you guys have seen it, but I just saw that video of like someone posted about like, this is Pro Tools. And it was like a video from the 90s. And they're like, and you're not going to believe it, but you can put plugins, you get plugins from this floppy disk. And
floppy, yeah.
Yeah, and you can have as many Focusrite compressors as you want. And like this guy was like getting super excited about it. And man, so you were probably using that very same version of software, I'm sure, Steve.
Yeah,
you're probably on the earliest version.
I started with Pro Tools. I think it was called Pro Tools 3 was actually what it was called. That was before there was 24-bit or anything. It was 16-bit, 44K. Pro Tools 3, that was their TDM, their not called HDM, HD at that time, but that was their processing system. But at my house, I had a smaller Digidesign Session 8 system. And so we've owned quite a few of the Digidesign now Avid products over the years, but we pretty much run Pro Tools everywhere now, both of our studios, our home studios. So
yeah, you probably didn't get quite locked into the upgrade license on that first Pro Tools 3 version. They probably weren't saying like, oh, it's time you upgraded now, you need to pay a little bit extra. So you did your time on that early version. Nice. I love it.
I was telling a client here day before yesterday, I showed him a little 1 terabyte SSD drive I had, fits in your shirt pocket. And I said, it costs like $100. And I said, I remember in 1994 buying the first 4 gigabyte hard drive that you could buy. It was a SCSI drive and it was $1,200 for 4 gigabytes. And I thought, Man, this is great. I got all the disk space I could use now.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you get that for free on Dropbox if you go and make a free
Yeah,
account.
exactly.
That's like,
Exactly.
you're almost offended if you don't get any more than 4 GB. You know, like that's like,
That's right.
what for? Wow. And so, Will, I mean, tell me about, you know, obviously you've been surrounded by audio, you know, your dad started reel to reel. You kind of grew up with it in your blood, always sort of being around this sort of equipment. But you're a producer now at the studio as well. So, I mean, what was that like? You know, do you remember maybe your first gig getting into a producing role?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was always kind of producing some of my own stuff. I mean, with Collective Soul, we've kind of always produced ourselves as well.
Right.
And we've got that long story with Pro Tools as also. I mean, I think we're kind of credited as the first band to work with Pro Tools
Yeah.
on a major release.
I think so.
Our second record that came out spring of '95 was all done on Pro Tools. We back then I think it was pretty common to go to tape first.
Right.
You know, we'd go to tape first and dump it in Pro Tools, and we were using it for the just the editing and mixing capabilities. But
That's the one that got recorded in the old cabin, right?
that was the third record.
That was the third one.
The second record, we were getting patches and updates from DigiDesign in Miami when we were at Criteria Studios, because we were actually kind of waiting on things every now and then. Hey,
Wow.
can it do this? Yeah. Let me send you a patch real quick. They were working with us. We'd already had a platinum, we'd already had a double platinum record, so they were taking our calls,
Wow.
But it's really interesting to watch the evolution of all that. And as far as being production, it's just always been something that I've been able to do. And I think part of that's just growing up around all the instruments. I started off on drums. By the time I was 8 years old, I was playing piano and drum set. Picked up a fretted instrument around 13. And I've always sang in choirs, understood arrangement, understood even being a studio drummer. I always tell that story about the first time I really got paid to do anything as a musician. The studio drummer didn't show up for a songwriter demo day at Reel to Reel, and my father called me in and told the guy who was paying for his songs to be, because that was the thing back in the day. You'd have a house band and a songwriter would come in and you'd try to record 3 or 4 songs one day when the drummer didn't show up. And my dad told the guy, if my son doesn't cut it, it's all on me. I'll pay the musicians. We'll come back another day. It's our bad, And so I got in there and I played drum set for this guy and he loved it. I could tell second take in, he's giving my dad the thumbs up. So anything from learning all instruments to seeing how records were created, even understanding at a young age how you stack and overdub and multi-track. I even think those simple concepts that I knew early on are part of what helps me understand about production. And then all that being said, then when I'm producing, I try to let go of all that technical stuff.
We were just saying a few technical difficulties on that just jumped in here, but we were just sort of saying how when you record or you're so passionate about your own music, it's about finding the balance of staying creative and then not letting the technical side and production side sort of suck out that energy that you've got for your music. That's definitely something I struggled with, and that's a big reason, although you came highly recommended, it's a big reason why I reached out to you guys to master my music as well. You've done all my stuff, and you just done a new single for me, which I'm really excited about. But that's just such a great opportunity because I've heard my mixes, and me and my buddy Matt heard our mixes so many times that I need new ears on this now. I just cannot bear to listen to it again.
I'm the same way on my music.
That kind of brings up another point too. For me, the technical and the feel and the performance thing are mainly in tracking. So there's tracking and then there's mixing to me. So tracking is what I want. I want to make this stuff, especially in Studio B. I've got inputs. I've got like 16 inputs that are always hooked up, mics, lines. They're always hooked up, ready to go. I just have to hit the input and hit record. But mixing, then you can start then you could, hey, I've already done all the tracking. I've poured all the emotion I can into the song. I think I know exactly where it's going to be in the end. But then the performances are done, the tracking is done. So then I feel like that's where I get into a little more of the techie side, is when there's a mix down, or like you said, you like to put other ears on your stuff. I love just for Steve to mix something that he hasn't been around for tracking at all. Yeah. Or somebody else, another friend of mine, Sean Grove, to mix something that he hasn't been around at all. I just send him the tracks, you know.
That's the beauty of all of this, and the collaboration side, and you end up coming up with something that, you know, is maybe not the way. Yeah, maybe not the way it would have gone. And I'm getting to experience that now because, you know, I really am on this journey about mixing and audio, especially since, you know, the last year, 2 years of not being able to perform live as much. It's been a case of, okay, well, now I'm going to go into this. I'm going to figure this out. And I've been doing it every single day. And I've had some friends now send me stuff. Hey, do you want to have a go mixing this? Like, humoring me a little bit, but it's been so cool now to really get into the production side, because I'm starting to, because I haven't been there, I have nothing to do with how they recorded it. Mm-hmm. I have this like I'm almost more confident, because I'm like, I'm just gonna put that vocal through a tube screamer and see how it goes. You know, like that's maybe stuff I wouldn't have done having I, you know, if I knew how it was actually tracked, or maybe that would have put up a barrier of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that because it was done with this mic and all that. But sometimes if I'm sent stuff and I don't know, it gives you a bit more a liberal view on it, I guess.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, and it's two-sided too. The writer and the performer gets to when they give it to someone like you to mix, then they get another artist and another set of ears to, you know, enhance or send something on a different angle or different road, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
as the artist, or even as the engineer who's recorded a project, you get really keyed into a certain instrument or a certain line is what you feel is, you know, really the carrying point. And then a fresh set of ears hears it and hears something totally different. And sometimes that's a great thing. You know, sometimes it really works out great. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is that I feel like it also teaches you so much, and in the way of like, I've done a mix with someone, I've sent it back, and I know they've listened to their demo so many millions of times.
Well, demoitis.
Demoitis. I send it back, where I feel like it's hugely enhanced or a lot better. I'm not saying that, you know, I'm learning, right? But right. Like, I feel really good about this one, guys. And they're like, you know what? It's not really where it was. And I'm thinking like, man, like, are our ears so different? But I know I've been that guy also. And so it's really made me now, when I get mixes back, where I'm just like, okay, clean slate. Let's really forget about the demo and let's hear. It does teach you how to listen in new ways.
Yeah, demo love is I really, if a client brings me a track to mix and they tell me, you know, we've had this demo done, we just love this demo. All right, that's a scary thing to mix a song with a client already loves the demo. Yeah. So a lot of times I'll just listen to the demo first and say, well, what is it you think you need to change here? Sometimes I think there's a lot they need to change. Other times, I've had clients send me demos that they wanted mixed, and I heard their demo and said, I don't really want to take your money to mix this. It sounds fine. Let's master it or whatever. So,
yeah, it depends on the client sometimes. If you're the mixer, like, because you know certain clients are like, they pretty much love the demo, so there's no reason to try to break the wheel, you know.
Yeah. And speaking of mastering, Steve, forgive this maybe flippant statement I'm about to make, but it's all in good jest, and it's because I want to learn more. But you know, as a mastering engineer, all you do is just make things louder, right? I mean, like, we're just talking about taking a Waves L1, slapping it on, making sure, you know, it doesn't go above 0.1, and we're all good.
You can cut the frequencies too. You can make stuff a little bit quieter.
I've actually gotten mixes before that I turned down in mastering because they were compressed and limited so much.
Of course,
it's not really a lot you can do mastering wise when you have no headroom to work with. But
of course, well, I
mean, that's the one thing everybody hears differently. It's generally louder after it's mastered. So
Yeah. But can you tell us a little bit more? Because I mean, obviously, that was a, we know you do a lot more than
Oh,
that.
that's all
And
there is.
oh, I was right. Okay, perfect.
You're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, you're right.
You're a
Yeah, yeah.
mastering engineer now.
That's what we do, right? Yeah. Well, I
I,
mean, tell us your approach. I mean, because I know you mix as well a bit, and or just as much. But what hat do you wear when you have that mastering? When you have a project come through to master, you know, obviously we know you're an extra set of ears. You're going to give a bit more feedback that comes along with the job as well. But when it actually comes down to putting the template together, what are you looking to do? That goes into that mastering process.
um, well, it starts with knowing what the delivery format is. What's going to happen with this track when it's done. Where is it going? Am I mastering for vinyl? Am I mastering for streaming? Am I mastering for CD?
Yeah.
Because those are all different. But once you identify the format, the target format or formats, as the case is a lot of times nowadays, it's listening to the mixes, uh, getting the target level set as far as loudness units. That's a new measurement that's come out in the last few years. That's really good. But it's really EQ. But the first thing I do in mastering before I do anything is if there's really soft passages in the track, in the mix versus really loud spots, I like to level that out with just some volume. I mean, not completely level it out, but I like to boost the really soft things a little bit just with pure volume, because that doesn't overwork the dynamics too much when I get into doing the compression and the limiting and the things like that. So I'll do a little bit of what I call macro dynamics, just going in and boosting volumes on really like soft intros or things like that. Then you get into pretty much, I go into tone after that, EQ, balance, kind of set the foundation. And a lot of that's determined by the mix, obviously. But once you get that done, then you go into the dynamics to see to get to the loudness point you want to be at. The compression is generally, mastering, it's pretty much always multi-band compression, not just a single stereo compressor. So it's multi-band, at least 3 bands, if not 6 bands. So.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I definitely I feel like my the audio hugs my ears a little bit more when it comes back from mastering. This recent track that actually you did, which I think Matt did a great mix on, and when it came back, it just felt like it was just tingling around the edges, even more so. And I thought, yes, this sits exactly right for me.
And many times, I would say the majority of times, I actually do a little bit of stereo imaging enhancement as well in mastering, through some MS encoding, and just give a little more, kind of keep the thump centered in the middle and get the sparkling brightness and shimmer, expand that a little bit left to right. It just opens up the sound stage a little bit.
When it comes to, tracking, recording, mixing at reel to reel, which is obviously it's a physical space. It offers a great experience for the artist, which is something I think is about to come up. But as we've already sort of pointed out, we do have Pro Tools now. We have Logic Pro. I record everything on my MacBook Air, in my basement. Has there been, do you remember the period where there was sort of an adaptation? Is that what I'm trying to say? Where you adapted to people recording at home? Because obviously, reel to reel, like many other studios, there would have just been a point where that was the only place they could go and get their songs done. Do you remember the point when that happened? I guess it would have been the mid-90s, like we sort of talked about.
The mid-90s, with the advent of the digital audio workstations, everybody could have a recording studio. And Will's dad and I, we had people ask us before, like Georgia Music Magazine interviewed us and said, they asked us if we viewed the home recordist as now that someone in their house can have a commercial studio if they want to, and did we view them as competition? And we said, no, we actually view them as clients, because there are things they can't do in their house. They don't have a room they can come in and cut drums in and get the sounds that we've got. They probably don't have the mic selection, the mic preamp selection. And we know many times they didn't have the knowledge that we had over the years.
Not to mention the room to mix in.
And yeah, exactly. So that's what we have to offer. So we've never viewed them as competition or as a detriment to our business. We actually viewed it as, hey, it's a new whole client base for us.
And now 20 years later, to me, all the best artists are bringing in, and this is the way I like to record now. They're bringing in their basic ideas that they started on Logic that are great. They're recorded fine. We might re-record some actual performances, but anything they programmed or any beats or any MIDI files that they've already recorded and quantized, we start the song with that. And now we're gonna use the $6,000 mic and the Manley Vox, preamp and compressor, and we're gonna put all the really good stuff into that session, and it allows us to actually, I think, get to a better spot for the song and for the artist quicker, and we spend a lot less time doing the monotonous BS, and especially with when it's not really a band and you're trying to bring in, back in the old days, trying to bring in every instrumentalist and put them together,
and when we have
that anymore.
And when we have had a band or an individual bring in work here that they started in their home studio that maybe has never been in a commercial studio before, they very quickly realize the difference. They're like, wow, there's things I can do here I couldn't begin to approach in my home studio. And so that makes their next production better, because they do the things they know, like Will said. If you're recording keyboards or you're programming drums or you're recording your guitars direct, you can do all that at your house. I mean, all you have to do,
and you can make sure you got the right vibe and the right direction without getting in here and being on a clock and everybody's like, oh, I gotta get this guitar part, I gotta get on the next part.
Absolutely.
And so they're at their home getting the right vibe. So I feel like the songs and the product is better because of all this.
And really. so much of guitar work now is modeling after the fact, and instruments are all virtual. So even when they come here, we can change the sounds. We can, replace your strings with this set or whatever, this synthesized MIDI track you've got, let's replace it with real sampled strings or sampled horns, whatever. And it really steps up the production.
Or the virtual amp is pretty good, but you know what? Let's dime out this JCM 800 in this room with this microphone and just reamp it there.
There is a lot to be said for moving air with a speaker. No question about it.
Yeah. So that is kind of, I'm glad you sort of caught on to where I was going with that, because that was definitely a thing. I mean, I'm just always interested to know with a studio like Reel to Reel, it's no pun intended, it's a real place. Like, you've got keys to a door and you go in and you have this space. When you see artists, and I'm just thinking about, well, like we sort of said, pretty much everyone, but I mean, definitely people like Billie Eilish that record an entire album, in a bedroom, so to speak.
Sure.
Is it narrowing it down? Do you look at that and be like, man, is this the way things are going? But as you say, and what we just touched on, there's some things you can't do, I can't do in this space so easily. And I definitely know that, I would much rather be in somewhere like Reel to Reel with somebody that's setting up a microphone for me, and I could just chill out a little bit, rather than me building a fort, out of blankets, and my headphone cable isn't long enough and it pulls my laptop off the desk, or the vibe quickly disappears, doesn't it?
Does. Sometimes it can be hard to capture that vibe.
Yes, that really can get in the way of the creative process.
Yes,
I almost tell everybody, look, I want your rough vocal from your house, but we're gonna redo the vocal here. We're gonna get you in a comfortable spot, beautiful headphone mix, and we're gonna get your vocal performance here.
Yes. Yep. Moving on, another question that I really, really love to ask is, As as people that listen to, you know, audio all the time, and you know, you're always thinking about different ways to record things and different approaches and being producers and mixers yourself. Are there any albums or songs that you feel actually don't quite hold up to today's standard? I mean, they're not quite there, but
Released today that doesn't hold up to today's standard, or classic stuff that doesn't hold up to today's standard?
well, let's put the question out to both, because I can definitely think of music where I'm like, man, I'm not too sure that would really fly today, but the song is that good that you just don't even think about that sort of stuff. You're just like, oh, it's just an amazing song. So is there anything that you're like, nah, the mix isn't great on this, but actually that doesn't matter?
Yeah, I'm an emotion feel guy. So I honestly I see like I love the 70s mixes. I love the mixes where Paul McCartney's bouncing down to a 4-track, you know, and he's got very limited capabilities. I'm, you know, chicken or the egg. I'm, you know, whatever came out and I loved it. And I love hearing those mixes that, yeah, the tamarine's like the loudest thing in the mix or whatever, but
Or drums totally on the left.
yeah,
I mean,
I love it. And that's just the way it was. And I love it. I don't have anything bad to say about any of that.
I was telling someone the other day that I listened to on a streaming. I was listening to 60s rock music,
Yeah.
and I had to get in through like 7 or 8 songs deep before I wasn't hearing the hard panning, you know, obvious limitations of a 4-track recorder or whatever, where either the mixes are mono or they're insane stereo. But I'm like, Will, I like some of that. Although every time I've ever tried it, it sounds terrible.
Right.
But somehow George Martin made it work, that's for sure. But I had there was a band back in the early 70s that I really liked, and I loved the album. The band was called Nectar, and their album was called Remember the Future. Saw that band twice here in Atlanta. Fantastic group. The album went out of print. You couldn't get it. Finally, about 6 years ago, I was able to find it on CD and got it. Absolutely horrible production quality. But
Wow.
but I mean,
But you
even
fell
for
in love
that
with
time,
the songs.
the songs are
But you
still
fell in
great.
love with the songs,
The songs are
right.
still great, but I was really surprised when I listened to it at the production quality. It just wasn't, you know, even for that time frame, it sounded very crushed and thin, basically. And I don't know if that was mastering for the CD or what, but it didn't sound like it came from vinyl. I mean, so I think it was a professionally done re-release from their masters, but just didn't quite wasn't as good as I remember. The songs were fabulous though.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, I think, you know, I always ask this question in pretty much every interview I've done, and we all just end up coming back to the same thing of like, but if the song trumps everything, it doesn't matter. It really, really doesn't matter in many ways. As long as that song is that, you know, if you're looking for that 3-minute 30 pop hooky song, that's
Mhm.
that's gonna really be the winner there. I just actually, funnily enough, watched slightly different but the same sort of thing. I just watched Ringo Starr's All Star, you know, band thing he does with Steve Lukather, and they do Rosanna, right? And I was thinking, wow, like, is Ringo really gonna play that Picaro shuffle on, like, I was like, no, that can't be what's about to happen. Like,
It ain't his thing, man.
it ain't his thing. And they've got 2 drummers, and then, like, so the other guy he starts, you know, the Picaro shuffle, and you're like, okay, and then Ringo comes in with duh, 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 and just comes and I was like, yeah,
There's Ringo.
but you know, come on, could anyone else play those parts? I know we're getting into a very cliched, you know, topic, but, you know, yeah, I mean,
Well, that's feel and performance, right? And
right.
And again, that trumps all the technical stuff, you know,
Yeah.
because you can't really imagine any of the Beatles stuff without Ringo Starr style playing, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, no, for sure.
Or Paul, whoever played it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I suppose we'll never know. Is it really Paul either?
No.
Are we going to go down that rabbit hole? Isn't it some tribute guy that took his spot instead? Well, I'm not sure.
I think I've listened to him so much now. I think I can tell the difference in even just the hit on the snare. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I'm eager to know. When it comes to even stuff with like Collective Soul, do you ever look back at some of those earlier albums and think, yeah, I'm not sure we would have done it like that now?
Yeah, of course. But I'm also that, like I said before, I'm also that guy that's like, I don't, I don't do a whole lot of what ifs or is this the best or um it's kind of like time and place, like, and I always go back to the word album, right? The word album was a word before there was vinyl and stuff. It's a collection of art, which are songs, music, done at the same period of time or created around the same period of time, and they go together as an album. So I with every with all of our albums, no, I wouldn't look back and say we do anything. I mean, we would definitely do it differently now, but it wouldn't be a thing where I'd listen back and go, I wish we would have done it differently now.
Right. And I don't think you can have that approach, can you? Because, as you just said, and
Kind of futile, isn't
Well,
it?
I mean, I hope that I always look back on previous things I've done and say, I can do better than that today. I mean, I hope that's the case, because that means I'm learning and growing, and there's plenty to learn in this business, that's for sure.
right. Yeah. Because I only sort of asked because, I mean, you know, I've always thought that the guitar part, the intro to Shine, I always think that is such an incredibly interesting tone, and such a unique one. It's quite dry, isn't it? It's quite a dry guitar sound and choice. And do you think that was that chosen because of what was being used, or where you were at the time?
That
Or
was
is
interesting. That's an interesting one because the first Collective Soul record, half of those songs were recorded as a band, and when you go back and listen, you'll be able to tell which ones. Love Lifted Me, Sister Don't Cry, Good Night, Good Guy, Breathe. Those are recorded as a band. Shine was recorded. Ed was pretty much by himself. He was trying to do a song or a number of songs to get a publishing deal. He wanted to maybe sell his songs. He had been working on it for a long time, working on his craft, working with the band, and he was going to try a different avenue. And it's also a good example because even back in the day, if we were recorded that song Shine as a band, it would not sound like that. So not only would it not have sounded like that, but then in the end, as we grow older and we see why things were certain things happened the way they happened, I think definitely part of the popularity of that song was because it didn't sound like anybody else. And we would have definitely, as a band, if we would have known that was going to be a hit like it was, we could have recorded it and it would have sounded a lot different. So it's a very interesting question, very interesting quandary.
At minimum, it wouldn't have had a D4 drum machine in it.
Yeah, I mean, Ross Childress played the solo, but Ed played everything on that song. Yeah.
So, I mean, in many ways, and I mean this in the best way, but we've kind of contradicted ourselves a little bit, haven't we?
Yeah.
In the way of like, when you take the $6,000 preamps out and this and that, like,
now we got something that doesn't sound like anybody else, and it became a hit,
Well, it was done as a demo. I mean, when Ed got signed by Atlantic, he's like, great, now I can record my album. They're like, no, you need to put a band together. You're going on the road. We're releasing this album.
Demo-itis. The label actually, the label had demo-itis more than the band. The label loved the demo.
They came and saw the band play live, and we were playing those songs live, but half of those songs had been recorded, like I said, not as a band. And we did package the first 11, 12 tunes on Hints. We did package it as a band on an independent label. Yeah. Atlantic had officially turned us down, but the reason the song couldn't be re-recorded, and we all thought, all right, we'll get to re-record it, which would have been a bad idea. The reason we couldn't re-record it is because that snowball had already started going downhill. A commercial station in Florida had picked it up. We were sitting there, number one most requested, had sold well over 30,000 copies on an independent label. And that's why we got signed, not because they heard us and wanted to promote us. The snowball was going downhill, and they wanted to partner up with that thing. And,
Right.
and it sure it crashed. It was a big old snowball by the time we got to the bottom, and it was Song of the Year in '94.
And nothing makes a label want to sign an artist more than an artist that's selling product without a label.
Yeah, and that sounds like that was really the turning stage of how labels started to approach artists, because I feel
was
like
around
back,
that time, was it?
About that time.
because around in the 60s, it would have been the case of like, we're going to take this person, we're going to make something of them, we're going to get them out there. And it sounds like then I'd never really thought about this time frame before, but certainly now it's like, well, you know, how many Instagram followers do you have exactly? Like, are we going to waste our time here, you know?
Right. And labels actually had a pretty large department in their company called artist development, you know. And now you can't even step to the table and get a meeting unless you've already developed yourself to a pretty strong spot, you know.
Man, how interesting. Wow. So that's, you know, I'm really glad I asked that question, because yeah, Shine
It's a
was a
good
demo
example of a bunch of different things, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then just one more on that then. What about the mastering place on that? Was there ever a stage of like, well, let's get it remastered, or can we adapt it some more?
It did get remastered before Atlantic released it. But
wow,
Atlantic on those masters. So
great story. Really, really great story. So I mean, I guess we're sort of wrapping up, but I do have a few more questions if that's okay with you guys. Although I have a feeling now that I've got to know you both a little bit more, I already know the answers. But when you wake up in the morning and you got a day of recording or a day of music mixing, or a band's coming in that you've never met before, or whatever, what keeps the excitement going for you? What keeps Reel to Reel going? You know, why do you wake up and decide, yes, I'm going to do this today? What keeps you going along with all of this?
Well, I mean, for me, it's client satisfaction. That's really what I enjoy the most, is a client being happy with the work we're providing for them, whether it's tracking, mixing, mastering, whatever. That's really what it's about. We don't spend any money in advertising. We've been in business since '76. We have a huge repeat customer base. So it's really about customer service to me. And you know, it's not like I love every project I work on musically. I mean, we work on so many different things. There's times I mean, if I work on a project that's really maybe a genre of music I'm not into, I'll spend a couple of days listening to that genre of music to really get my ears ready for it and say, okay, this is how things are done in this, you know, knowing, you know, I want my clients, we always want our clients to feel like, as Will's dad always said, we want every client that walks in the door to feel like they're the most important client that's ever been here. And that's kind of what keeps the excitement to me, is making it that, and working with friends. You know, all of us here are really very good friends and known each other a long time. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, same way. But for me, like, it's just really, it's that word creating. Even if I'm working with somebody else, creating music just gets me going. It still does. It just gets my motor going. Not every day you're going to be 100% pumped up, but most of the time I'm driving in the studio, my motor gets going because I'm just going to create. Obviously, I like working on, this is Studio B we're in right now. I like working on a lot of my stuff and some of my friends' stuff. I don't work a whole lot with some of the other commercial stuff that comes in here. But man, it's just all about creating, working with friends, creating with friends. That gets me going, man. The hairs will still stand up on my arm when things happen right.
And we like being challenged. You know, last week I was mixing a project for a rap artist, and on one song he said, "I'd really like to put a marching band in this track."
Oh, we'll fly one of those in. Yeah.
Okay, well,
USC Trojans coming in from Fleetwood Mac.
We can do that. So you know, I programmed in a marching band section. The client absolutely loved it, and it really is cool because it goes from this rap beat into this marching band thing, and then at the end the two are layered together, and it really works very well. So
I think
so
it
that was
really,
something that I was a little bit apprehensive to try, but turned out great.
I think it really says a lot about both of you and the studio that, you know, considering about your client list and who has been in that studio and who you have done work for, you still treat, as you say, every sort of every client as if now we're making your album. Like, you know,
Right.
you're up there with everyone else, and I think it'd be almost too easy for you guys to be like, well, you're not Toby Keith, or you guys aren't really the next Blackberry Smoke, so go and find another place.
Yeah, but you
Go
know,
work on it.
but those are not the majority of our sessions. The
Right.
majority of our sessions are the local artists, and we enjoy that as much as we enjoy the name artists coming in here. I mean, we really do. We enjoy it quite a bit.
And also, you know, the challenge is, or the hope is, this is the next Blackberry Smoke.
Sure.
We
Yeah,
are working with the next.
That's something I definitely want to be a part of. I want to see the next Collective Soul come out of Reel to Reel, you know, and I'm excited for that day. I feel like it will happen.
Like
Yeah.
2 years ago, I signed a young lady that I've never signed anybody before in 25 years. In 25 years of being Bill Turpin's partner, he and I never signed an artist. And I told Will I wanted to sign this person. Will was my new partner at the time, and he said, "Well, you know, I kind of like to hear it." So he heard a couple of tracks, and he's like, "Yeah, let's sign this person." And she's an awesome talent, great musician, great songwriter, great singer, and she really does two different things. She does this totally acoustic thing, and then this rock band thing. So
she's going to be successful in some form or fashion. Right. Melody Kaiser, look her up.
Okay, well,
the band's called Hey Dreamer.
Hey Dreamer, one word.
You guys heard it here. Everyone, go and check that out. That's so exciting. I just want to sort of leave you guys with one more question, and that is, you know, you're quickly now approaching your 50-year anniversary. So, what are you guys going to do for it? Is there any plans for Reel to Reel? You know, hit the 50th birthday. What's happening next?
There is something in the works. I talked to our biographer the other day, Marshall Terrell. He's finishing up a book on my dad's life and Reel to Reel Studios. Wow. So he's looking at like being able to have it out by the fall. So that'll be 50 years. So it's gonna be a really cool book. He said his editors fallen in love with the story, and he's feeling really confident about it. And yeah, we're excited about that.
Man, well, I need to get a hold of, get a copy of that too when it comes out. That sounds really exciting.
I'll have to find a few copies for our friends. We'll send you one.
Yeah, awesome. Well, look, Will, Steve, thank you so much for taking your time. I really, really appreciate it. It's just really nice as someone that, and other people that will listen and watch this, to, you know, that record at home, to also get to know a little bit about what it's like about running, you know, a big recording studio and your creative experiences, and also working with other people that record at home for the most part and then bring their work to you, and how you enhance it and how you produce it, and that is really inspiring to hear and sort of listen to the process.
I would say 70% of the work we do, the artist brings in something they've already worked on. Easily 70%. Even when Kansas is here, they brought
some tracks in.
Phil actually cuts the drum tracks listening to the demo track in his in-ear monitors that, you know, one of the other band members has put together.
Wow.
Instead of a click track. So
yeah. That's kind of funny. I was listening to it. I don't know if you listen or watch the Eric Valentine YouTube channels and whatnot, but like, you know, I think I was watching something with the last Weezer record, not this one, but the one before, where, you know, the drummer really, the first time he's tracking is actually to the demo, or pretty much, or whatever Rivers has put together, and you know, and that's it. That's the first time he's hearing it, is just
absolutely
into it. And so in many ways, bringing in these demos actually allows you to work quicker and with more people, because
yes, it does.
Yeah. The work's been done.
It does speed the process up.
I think it's quicker, and then the time you do spend in the studio, it's better. It's better time. You're spending it on the good stuff.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Well, it's been a real pleasure, real thrill for me. And for those watching and listening to the Can't Afford to Record podcast, you can go and check out all the description of this video and everything, and go and check out Reel to Reel, see what they do, and keep an eye out for this 50th anniversary book, which is going to be really exciting. So yeah, thanks so much, both of you. And I know we're going to work together real soon again, because I'm already working on more stuff that I'm going to be sending over your way. But yeah, let's try and have another conversation real soon. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Robby. We appreciate it.
Cheers,
See you
Robby.
guys soon. Bye.
See you.